preparation, my salvation, my destination, and my revelation don't exempt me from being stoned and left for dead at Lystra. When they threw those stones at the Apostle Paul, those stones didn't say, okay, we can't hurt him because he's Paul. This is Paul, God's choice servants. So the stones didn't say, well, when we hit him, we're going to become like styrofoam or like rubber. No, they was real stones upside his noggin, left him black and blue and unconscious, and he thought he may have been dead. And all he was trying to do was serve the Lord. So even his divine revelation, which could have caused him to become exalted, didn't exempt him. Instead, it becomes a part of his humiliation. Let me wrap this up quickly. So Paul says, unless I should be exalted above measure by the abundance of the revelations, a thorn in the flesh was given to me, a messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I be exalted above measure. God looked at the Apostle Paul, and God looked at everything he had put inside of Paul, the IQ, the intelligence, the ability to learn foreign languages, the mind of a legal lawyer, the brilliance of a theologian. And God said, I done gave him so much, I got to give him something else. I got to give him a thorn in his flesh. I got to give him something that continues to irritate him and to remind him that apart from me, he can't do anything. It's not about him. He cannot do anything. So Paul says, I got a thorn in the flesh, and it wasn't given to me by the devil. It was allowed by God. God allowed it. And the thorn was a messenger of Satan sent to buffet me. Sent to buffet me. And so this messenger of Satan that was sent to buffet the Apostle Paul to hold him in check, you see, to hold him in check was a part of Paul's humiliation. It was part of his humiliation to keep him humble before God. There were also three other things that were part of Paul's humiliation. The first of all is that most theologians who've written about him said he was not attractive physically. He wasn't very good to look at in terms of his physical appearance. And the Corinthians talked about that. He said, man, Paul can write. He's a silver-tongued eloquent in writing. His words are mighty and powerful, but when he show up, he's not much to look at. As a matter of fact, it has also been suggested that he wasn't a great public speaker from the standpoint of being like Aquila and Priscilla, like Aquila. He wasn't a great speaker. He wasn't a great orator like Apollos. The ability to wrap words up in such a way to draw word pictures and to move people with his words. You know, he's a brilliant mind, a theologian. He's making the theological arguments. So when you read his writings in the book of Romans, the greatest treatise about salvation ever written. When you read Ephesians, the greatest theological trust about predestination, foreordination, and about the mystery of the church, it comes from a brilliant theological mind, the Apostle Paul. But apparently he wasn't a great speaker, so his physical presence wasn't that impressive. And then thirdly, he just became so unpopular that nobody wanted to hang out with him. Because everywhere he went, a riot broke out. Because he was a truth teller. And truth, by its very definition, is inflammatory. I think it was George Orwell who said it best. He says, in a world of mass deception, the truth teller sounds like a revolutionary. In a world of mass deception, when people stand on the scene and try as best they can to articulate the unadulterated truth, they're the ones who sound like the militant. They're the ones who sound like the revolutionary. I was in a meeting the other day of the top people on the workforce investment system. And I'd written a paper and submitted them a paper and said, look, West Virginia is on the precipice of an economic catastrophe, of an economic crisis, and it's going to be driven by the workforce. And I laid out something I've been working on for about 5 or 6 years, looking at and analyzing the workforce. We have the lowest workforce participation rate in the country. The unemployment rate is almost irrelevant. What's important is workforce participation. How many people are actually working? So there's 1.8 million people in West Virginia, but there's only 798,000 of them working. So 798,000 people are working, and they're working to support another 1.1 million people. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? We have this great, what they call transfer payment. 1 in 4 people in West Virginia are receiving some type of transfer payment. That means they're receiving TANF, they're receiving some type of Medicaid, they're receiving some type of Social Security benefit. 1 in 4. And the Secretary of Tax and Revenue said it will be 1 in 3 people in the next 10 years. So 1 in 3 people will be receiving some type of income for not doing any type of work. We are the oldest workforce in the country and getting older. Baby boomers will retire in unprecedented numbers over the next 10 to 15 years. Therefore, there will be depletion of the workforce. And when people retire, their taxable income goes down. So therefore, the state, which is struggling right now to generate tax revenue, will generate less tax revenue when those of you who are now in your peak earning years retire, your taxable income goes down. Fewer tax dollars coming in. On top of that, we have one of the highest out-migration rate of educated, talented people leaving. Young lady right here, brilliant mind, went to Morgantown to go to school and didn't even unpack all of her bags because she had no intention of coming back to West Virginia. Why? Because there are so few opportunities for progressive thinking people, particularly from the minority community. So we're losing the brain trust of young, brilliant people that we're educating with tax dollars through the promised scholarship, but most of them go somewhere else to work. Not only that, the age of the workforce, we're the most unhealthy workforce in the country. We have the highest prescription drug rate in the entire United States of America. And if you read the paper closely, we've created a clandestine drug cartel of illegal narcotics from Florida to Huntington. So much so that the governor went down to the Huntington and made some big break proclamation. He's going to lock them up and put them on a hard work detail. This is depleting the workforce, the age of the workforce, the health of the workforce, people leaving the state. And we have the lowest immigration rate, net zero, of people trying to come here. Nobody's breaking their neck to come here. Are y'all listening to me? I try to tell people the workforce that we have is Billy and Kathy and Jane and Rakeem and Michelle, whoever. Them kids who are in school today, they're the only ones that's going to be here tomorrow because ain't nobody else trying to come here. Let me tell you what, this is serious. And nobody can refute it. What they did instead, they just ignored me. They ignored me. I said, fine, I done told you the truth. I don't care whether you ignore me or not. Only one guy, Brian Nolan, whom you guys know, Brian Nolan, the chancellor of the Higher Education Policy Commission, called me and said, look, I want to come and talk to you. I read what you wrote down. I believe there's some merit to it. These are the type things that when you tell the truth about something, people are going to make you the enemy like you created the problem. I didn't create this problem. I'm just analyzing. I'm just trying to be a truth teller to say, here's what I see. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But if I'm right, we better all get together and try to do something about it. On top of that, 1/3 of all kids who graduate from high school have no marketable skill and are not prepared for employment. If you read the newspaper a couple of weeks ago, 1/3 of all kids who go to college are not prepared to go. And they got to take remedial classes once they get there because they can't do college work. And we have one of the lowest graduation rates of kids graduating from college after 6 years. You're supposed to do it in 4. No more than 4.5. 5 if you partied the first year. But 6, and we still got the lowest graduation rate. These are truthful realities. So if you want to know why I try to put education right up there, right below salvation, because without education, a capitalistic freedom market, global economy, where people in other countries are willing to work, we better figure out how to do it and be prepared to do it. Otherwise, those of us who are working, our taxes are going to go out of the roof to pay for those who are not working. These are truthful realities that are often rejected and people don't want to hear, but it's the truth nevertheless. Well, Paul's humiliation led to his brokenness before God. And as I conclude with this point, Paul decided, well, I may as well turn my struggle into my friend. I may as well turn my hardship into my partner. I can't get away from it. No matter where I go, it shows up. So I got to learn how to deal